Back in 2007, Ubisoft, a company most well known at the time for the Tom Clancy and Prince of Persia series, released the first game in their soon-to-be most successful franchise, Assassin's Creed. From the moment Jade Raymond showed off the demo of what herself and Patrice Désilets had created, it was clear that the game was special. Being one of the first true open world games to be showed off on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, the sheer size and depth of the recreation of the Holy Land was what put Assassin's Creed on the map. No pun intended. But on top of that, as we realised when the game was officially released, Assassin's Creed held so much more. A world not only large in size, but filled to the brim with atmosphere, of character, and of NPCs that were truly integrated into the game. A story that lent on major historical conflicts, on religious divisions, on philosophical and moral ponderings, and on a brutality that could be felt whether you were assassinating a soldier or simply walking through the harrowing streets of Acre, Jerusalem or Damascus. Assassin's Creed pushed the gaming industry forward, and that was done even more so by its sequel Assassin's Creed 2. Including a story far more personal and relatable, but no less nuanced and interesting, AC2 introduced one of the most iconic characters in all of gaming, whilst continuing to push its incredibly unique movement system to the limit in the stunning world of Renaissance Italy. AC2 became instantly iconic, and this was no different with Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, which took everything the first two games in the series did and built on it. Brotherhood set the blueprint for what open world games would become, with its gorgeous recreation of Rome being filled to the brim with unique pieces of side content that truly made the city feel alive. Rome was a living, breathing entity that was occupied once again by Ezio Auditore, who brought with him a level of nuanced character writing that has rarely been seen in the medium. These first three games were revolutionary. They made such an enormous wave throughout the games industry that every developer rushed to copy their formula. Whether it be eagle vision, parkour, social stealth, even the historical settings of the games. Assassin's Creed 1, 2 and Brotherhood were the heights of innovation in the industry at the time. They became the blueprints for what open world games should be. They were put on a pedestal, and alongside the GTA series, they were the reason for nearly every AAA game that's released over the past decade, including some kind of open world. Fast forward to 2021. Now on the 12th main entry into the series, Assassin's Creed Valhalla has been the financially most successful game to grace this franchise, relative to the time it's been out. So it'd be easy to assume that Ubisoft have continued the trend of this franchise to push the gaming industry forward. You'd assume that the Assassin's Creed franchise is still the unique, innovative industry icon that it was all those years ago. If you assumed that though, you couldn't be further from the truth. Earlier this year, online outrage sprouted up after a Reddit post went viral showcasing that half of the available armor sets in Assassin's Creed Valhalla were locked behind exuberant paywalls. And whilst that may not seem like that big of a deal, it's a symptom of a much bigger problem. Ubisoft over the past 6 years have been slowly incorporating more and more microtransactions into the Assassin's Creed games. In Unity, the HELIX store was introduced, where you could get extra credits to make the game somewhat easier. By the time Odyssey was released in 2018, this had evolved into a fully fledged online store integrated directly into the main menu, filled to the brim with outfits, armor, gear, horses, ship sales, XP boosts, crafting materials, and anything else in between. Whilst other publishers have been lambasted over the years for scummy microtransaction practices, Ubisoft have been able to get away with it. Whilst EA had to rebuild Battlefront 2 from the ground up after Backlash, Ubisoft continued to profit from these outdated business practices, which are copy and pasted from free-to-play games, mobile games, and the likes of Battlefront and Call of Duty. No other company is able to get away with putting such egregious microtransactions in their single-player AAA games. Ubisoft, on the other hand, have been able to claim in investor reports that the last 3 games have been their most financially successful games, but that has nothing to do with their quality, that has nothing to do with their game sales, and that has nothing to do with fans being passionate about their games. It has everything to do with season passes, DLC, and microtransactions. But that brings us on to another topic, because believe me when I say this video is not just about microtransactions. No, what's more egregious is how Assassin's Creed has been warped, manipulated, and destroyed for the sake of stakeholder benefits. After the failures of Assassin's Creed Unity and Syndicate, 2 games which despite their glaring flaws stayed somewhat in line with the established identity of the franchise, Ubisoft decided to switch it up. They saw that the franchise wasn't doing as well fiscally, and seemed to believe that it was because the franchise identity had gotten stale. They didn't think think for even a second they couldn't possibly fathom that the reason sales were dropping wasn't because people were bored of Assassin's Creed, but because the annual games that were being released were very simply terrible. But no, Ubisoft went in another direction. And based on what they did with the original games, this could have been a great move. Surely such an innovative company that pushed the open world genre forward could do something with the series to revive its popularity while maintaining what made it great in the first place. This wasn't the case. Around 2015, open world RPGs were becoming arguably the most popular gaming genre, thanks to the likes of The Witcher 3 and Horizon Zero Dawn. So instead of innovating, instead of creating something new, Ubisoft saw this success and realized something. Not only did they need to jump on this open world RPG bandwagon as soon as possible, but they also had to ensure it was a success. And they already had a series which had enough name brand recognition to sell at least 5 million copies. Combine that name with a trending genre, and what do you get? You get Assassin's Creed Origins, a game which on release was beloved by most, a game which to this day I still think is fairly good, but also a game that killed the identity of this franchise forever. Ubisoft took the goodwill and the integrity of the Assassin's Creed name and used it to create a Witcher 3 clone, as to maintain at least some cultural relevance. And it worked. And yes, I did take my hair out because I realized that my massive forehead was probably getting in the way of the point of this video. People flocked to buy Assassin's Creed Origins, and even more so to buy Odyssey the following year, a game which not only went further in the RPG direction, but also stripped the identity of the series down even further, removing Assassins and Templars entirely, reducing the parkour down to a basic climbing system, making stealth a pointless endeavour, and adding superpowers that pushed the game into the realm of fantasy. For a lot of fans, Odyssey was a breaking point. However, the announcement of Assassin's Creed Valhalla last year sparked some hope for longtime fans that adored what the series was built on. Sparked hope in some fans. I wasn't one of them. To give it credit where it's due, Valhalla does do a lot of things right. It brings back an interesting modern day story, it brings back social stealth, hidden blades, assassins, and Templars to an extent. But its marketing and its post-launch content paints a completely different story. Yes, the people working on this game, the Darby McDevitts and Jesper Kids, clearly were passionate to include some elements of the franchise that it was built on. Ubisoft, on the other hand, had other ideas. They wanted a massive, inflated Viking RPG that of course had the Assassin's Creed name to make sure it was recognizable. They wanted raids, they wanted Viking DLC, they wanted armor sets and XP boosts, they wanted a 75-hour story that would give them arbitrary player statistics that they could show off to their shareholders. They had no interest in innovating, they had no interest in creating something memorable, in creating a game with any lasting legacy, in pushing the industry forward. No, they simply wanted to capitalize on market trends by using the Assassin's Creed name. From a financial point of view, this without a doubt worked, and as a business whose end goal is profit, it completely makes sense. But as someone who's been invested in Assassin's Creed for nearly 15 years, it's honestly heartbreaking to see a franchise I love being used as a cash cow, milked of all potential profit without any regard for the integrity of the title Assassin's Creed. If you ask just about anyone who's played the series who their favourite protagonist is, they'll most likely say Ezio Auditore or Edward Kenway. If you ask them what their favourite game is, they'll most likely say 2, Brotherhood, or Black Flag. If you ask them what comes to mind when you say Assassin's Creed, they'll say hoods, hidden blades, social stealth, and parkour. They'll mention the gorgeous scores, the fascinating modern days, and the story of Ezio. Much fewer will mention the XP boost they felt forced to buy in Odyssey, level grinding for hours in Origins, romancing Minerva in Jotunheim, or the epic armor pack they spent $15 on. Sure, the direction Ubisoft has gone with the franchise has no doubt made them extra profit in the short term, but in exchange for that boost to their profits, they sacrificed the integrity and the identity of their most popular series. They relinquished their legacy of being boundary-pushing innovators. They earned a reputation of pure greed. Assassin's Creed in 2010 was a series everyone looked up to, a series everyone tried to follow in the footsteps of, a series that symbolized everything great about video games as a medium. Assassin's Creed in 2021 is the annual mediocre historical RPG that you can play if you have plenty of free time and a bit of extra cash lying about. And to say the least, it is heartbreaking to see. For years of my life, Assassin's Creed was my favourite franchise of all time. It was my favourite piece of fiction of all time. It was the series that made me fall in love with games, that made me fall in love with storytelling. But that was when it was groundbreaking. That was when it was truly consistently great. That was long before Assassin's Creed sold its soul. So thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to hit like because it does really help me out and I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you're new here and want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe with post notifications turned on so you don't miss any more videos like it. Shout out to everyone who's supporting me on patreon.com/found Scarab. This wouldn't be possible without you. And with all that being said, I've been Joe, aka Found Scarab, and I will see you in the next one.